order the July 9th board meeting of the Carver County Board of Commissioners. Join me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you very much. On our agenda, item number C is public comments related to an item on the agenda. If anybody's here that wants to say a few words to the county board this morning, now's the time. We'll limit you to 5 minutes, but if there's nobody here, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Item number 2, the agenda review and adoption. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Workman, seconded by Commissioner Lynch. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 3 is approval of the minutes of the June 18th regular session, the June 18th Board of Equalization, and the June 25th special session. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Move to approve as presented. Mr.
Second.
Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Fahey, second by Commissioner Uterman. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Community announcements. Mr. Workman, anything to share this morning?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to depart the meeting a little bit early, not because of my disinterest in those items, but
Thank you for explaining that, yes.
Joanne, longtime resident of Chanhassen, Joanne Mavison, and the lady usually in charge of elections up in Chanhassen, among other things, and mother of a classmate of mine, and mother of a son who I lived right by and played softball with. So I'm going to go up and honor Joanne Mavison this morning. Rest in peace.
Yep. Other community announcements. Commissioner Uterman.
Mr. Chair, 4th of July parade was canceled in Chan, I think the first time in 40-some years. I know a number of people in this room were going to be participating in that, but it had to happen. There was other festivities as well. Just talked to Marty before the meeting. 4th of July fireworks moved to Waconia on the 3rd. Very well attended, and so we'll have the 4th of July parade again next year. Wanted to acknowledge the service of the Mayor Mark Winchell. He announced that he will not be running again for mayor. And sometimes there's politicians and there's public servants. Mark's a public servant. Whether you like some of his opinions and decisions or you don't, I think he served us pretty well. He's a cheerleader for Chaska. Anytime you see him out and about, he's wearing a logo gear, whether it's the Chaska Hawks or it's the town course or the Loop or what have you. And, if there's one word to describe Mark, it's duty, whether it's his time on fire service, his volunteerism at the Cubs. He was instrumental in the Cubs, whether it's showing up for kids or grandkids events, or as mayor. And a couple memories of Mark that most people don't know. On Memorial Day, the night before Memorial Day, he always puts out placards at the cemetery. And he doesn't do that because of the fanfare. He does it because it's the right thing to do. And I can't tell you how many times there's been interrupted family dinners, or he goes down to see where there was a complaint at midnight because people, and I know everybody on the board does those things as well, but those are the little things of a public servant you don't always get to see. So if you get a chance to reach out by text or phone call, or I know he'll be at the ribbon cutting on Saturday for Costco, just take a moment to say thank you, because sometimes these jobs can be thankless. Wanted to call out Ari, who's our Chief Communications Officer. She pulled together a mid-year report. Everybody's got a copy of that. It'll be posted soon. And sometimes you look back in 6 months and you forget some of the great things that we've done and historic things we've done. And so included in the mid-year highlights is the recognition of the board's support and direction and vision to be on pace to be the first sizable county in the state with 100% fiber. It talks about the contracts awarded for 212. Which everybody in this room has had a chance to be part of. Significant dollars attached to that. Lyndon's team has been very instrumental on a road that they thought would never be possible. Every time you discuss 212, you have to throw in the names Bob Lindell. It wouldn't have happened without him. Carol Malnow wouldn't have happened without her. My predecessor, Randy Malushnik, probably wouldn't have happened without him either. Jim Ishii was a fan of that as well. So that's in this report. We talked about the 101-year celebration. There's a picture of you, Commissioner Degler. Attorney's office, things moving in the management system. health assessments, and reconstruction of Baylor Park. So a lot of great things happening, and Ari made this comment. She says, we would have had enough stuff to fill 10 pages. And so if you weren't included in that, there's a year-end report as well. I don't know that we've been together since the last time, but we did hit record water levels at the ballpark and around the 41 bridge. And had a chance to talk to some people that were attached to 1965 and how different it was without that levee and the vision that it took to build that levee up. I think there was something like 60 or 70 households that were significantly impacted by water and 20 businesses in 65. We didn't have those worries this year. Carver might have, but they're on pace to do something about it as well. We have a jam-packed agenda today, so just a couple more things. Peer awards are open now, so if you're a member of the county and you want to nominate one of your peers, it's an effort that HR does and does a nice job of to recognize people within our county that have done exceptional work. And then a couple weeks ago, the sheriff's office stepped into the touch-a-truck world. I know that it's been popular touch-a-truck type stuff in Chanhassen and Chaska, but we did our own version of it, and the sheriff's office did a fantastic job in the parking lot in front. Very well attended, nice weather, lots of kids. So thank you.
Commissioner Lynch.
Well, if we're gonna give credit to all the construction projects, we have to give credit to Lyndon. Lyndon has done a yeoman's job, and with the flooding and with the vision that we've had to toot our own horn, the 101 bridge is absolutely a godsend with 4111 being closed. So if we wouldn't have taken the lead on that with the state, that never would have got built. And I also, unfortunately, like Commissioner Workman, we lost a longtime community member up in Watertown, Jim Young. He was a former teacher and coach at Watertown High School. He was a long time ago. He was my football coach, so you know it was a long time ago. So.
All good things come to an end sooner or later.
Yep.
Commissioner Fahey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to thank everyone that's been involved in the budget process. We started the hearings this week. Yesterday, we had the Fair Board, the county attorney, and then the county board and administration. So that's just a process that we have to go through every year. So thanks everybody for their efforts and also the inputs. This Saturday, the Cologne Lions are having a pancake breakfast benefit for Bountiful Basket Food Shelf in Cologne. That's from 8 to 12 at St. Bernard's Church in Cologne. And then if you are interested in looking at the stars, the Camping with the Stars, this weekend, July 12th through the 14th at Baylor Regional Park. It's an annual event hosted by the Minnesota Astronomical Society. It's a 3-day event. It starts Friday night and ends on Saturday. So you can come out and get laser guided tours of the night sky and then also stargazing well into the night. And I was out there a few years ago, and it's quite the event and something to really see and participate in. That's all I have, sir.
Yeah, a couple people mentioned the floods that's going on now and or in 65. Well, back in 1965, I was an 8th grader at that point, and not this portion, but the original portion of the courthouse was just being dedicated. We just dedicated that in 65, and that spring, we had to sandbag it just to save the courthouse from being flooded. And I remember 65 vividly because that was the year I was supposed to get confirmed. I was supposed to get confirmed on April 11th, so your hymn book and Bible has the date of April 11th. Well, because of the flood, got postponed 1 week, so I actually got confirmed on Easter of April 18th that year, 1965. And then talking about the flood, we talk about the 101 bridge, and there was a time that the governor and his staff recommended that 101 bridge be built to just 2 lanes. Well, we invited the governor to come to our board meeting, and during a break, a fellow former commissioner and myself and the governor, we ended up walking into the hall, into the restroom, and we had a little talk with the governor. And this former commissioner claims that the reason that it's a 4-lane highway is because when we were in the restroom talking, we convinced the governor that would be foolish with that extra money that we could spend to make that 4 lanes. And now it proved that was money well spent. And I want to thank the board for going along with this board upfronted the money to the state to pay for that 4-lane highway. And the state has since reimbursed us over a period of time. But if it wasn't because of this board stepping up and providing that money, we'd all be backed up with 101. So that was just, excuse me, a couple of flood-related stories. Just a reminder, this August, this is an election year. This August, we do have a primary. So come down, vote in person, or you can get an absentee ballots in the primary. There's lots of things to vote for. Everybody has that chance, utilize it. So, since we have a long agenda this morning, we'll move right on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, if I could, like hoping in Trivial Pursuit, it's never gonna be a question about where was the decision made from go to a 4-lane from a 2-lane. But I'd also like to remind everyone, it's Mayor Rising Festival in Mayor, this Saturday. So if you guys are going through the car show and you see a 1966 Chrysler Newport, you should vote for it.
What time does that car show start?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. in Mayor. Would most people know what that car even looks like?
Well, I get the award for the longest car,
The longest.
the land yacht.
Okay. Okay, now, moving on, the consent agenda. We have 18 items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ruderman, second by Commissioner Lynch to approve the consent. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Ruderman.
I just wanted to mention 5.10 is VR training for a sheriff's office. I'm told that we're one of the leads within this space where they're using virtual reality within their training. And I thought it was pretty cool that we're investing in that. There's a grant associated with it. We're training our people and getting them ready because I know that law enforcement has been a hot topic. And so I just wanted to make that comment on the record and continue to urge and support Sheriff Cameron and what they're doing in that space.
Well said. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 6.1 on our agenda is brought to us, our health and dental insurance recommendation. And we'll kick it off by having Mia from our employee relations kicking it off, and she's going to be ably assisted by Jessica. Take it away, Mia. Screen, please.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Mia Johnson, Employee Relations Business Partner here at the county. The county's current multi-year health and dental agreement with Health Partners expires on December 31, 2024. Gallagher Benefit Services and Employee Relations are here this morning to review the recent request for proposal process that was completed for both health insurance and dental insurance, and to provide our recommendation to the board for coverages effective January 1, 2025. Jessica Nickonen's here with me this morning. She's an area vice president with Gallagher.
Who's Gallagher?
Gallagher? Well, I'll hand off to Jessica, and she can answer your first question as she kicks it.
Jessica, explain who Gallagher is for everybody.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. It is not the watermelon Gallagher that those of you who are old enough to know,
Oh,
the
boy.
watermelon slicing Gallagher guy. It is not that. Gallagher is a leading brokerage firm that provides employers help with their property casualty, employee benefits, and overall risk management. So
Thank you for that introduction.
So to share the results, see if I can, is it on the side button here? This one. There we go. Okay. As Mia indicated, I'm here to present the information on the medical and dental RFP that was collected earlier this year. For the medical, we did send that RFP to all carriers in Minnesota, as well as self-funded Minnesota pools that cover public entities in the state. The goal with sending that out and casting a wide net was to make sure that we were getting all of the offers and the best offers possible. The good news is this time around with the marketing, we did get 6 fully insured offers. We also got 3 self-funded offers, and we did get 3 declined to quote. So the 3 that declined to quote are shown under that dotted line: Allina Health Aetna, Minnesota Healthcare Consortium, and the Better Health Collective. Above the dotted line are the 6 carriers and pools that did quote Carver County's medical plan. I will go into them in more detail on the next page. For the dental RFP, that was sent out to the 6 carriers that you see listed below that solid line. We received 6 fully insured offers as well as 5 self-funded offers. Those 6 carriers that we received from are leaders in the dental insurance market. So let's go into a little bit more detail about those two. The self-funded proposals that we did receive, the good news is last time around we didn't receive any self-funded proposals. This time around we did receive 3, as I just mentioned. However, those 3 self-funded proposals did not provide a savings to the county, and that's because the fully insured proposals we received included a decrease to your current health insurance rates along with a second-year rate cap. So the good news is the premium increases that we've experienced the last few years have brought us closer to being able to self-fund, which is a goal of the county. However, the fully insured offers right now are better than those self-funded offers. The results have been reviewed with the Labor Management Committee, and I'm highlighting to you, you're seeing the full summary of the offers. I'm highlighting in the orange box the most competitive offer, which is from Health Partners. That initial offer is a decrease of 5%. The final offer, which includes some changes to plan design, which do need to be negotiated, would allow for a decrease of over 7% to your current rates. In 2026, the rate cap is 12%, which means they will calculate how the experience of the group is running and determine what the increase will be. That increase will not be greater than 12%. It could be less than 12%. However, I wouldn't bet on that, but 12% is the worst case scenario. You can see we did receive some other competitive offers with either a negative or a hold steady in the middle there, and then we did have some offers that were in the single digits above. Any questions from?
Well, just a quick one. I'm sure there's other questions. So that means there's a 12, about a 17% swing from year 1 to year 2?
That is correct. So coming down on the current rates in the year 1 if we were at a -5 and then having to go up to a 12%, correct.
In the past few years, our rates have been consistently going up. Why the decrease now?
The decrease now is attributable to market competitiveness. So all of the carriers know that they are bidding against each other to earn your business. They typically in that first year, and the county has seen this before in past years, in that first year will offer a decrease. So the 2 marketing periods, this last marketing period, we did not get a decrease. We were also bidding during COVID, so that attributed that. The 2 marketing periods before that, the county did receive a decrease in the first year with rate caps, and it's really the carriers competing to earn your business.
And some of these questions, because we're on the Labor Negotiating Committee, Management Committee, I should say, I'm asking them because I know the answers, but I just want to make sure that general public knows.
Correct.
Other questions? Commissioner Uderman.
Great job. Because a year ago, 2 years ago, if we memorialize this, yourself and I were at AMC and we saw a breakout about self-insurance.
Oh.
It started a lot of the conversation. And I know that a lot of the conversations have been challenging and they've taken a lot of effort, but look at the result. If you would have sat here 6 months ago or a year ago and said that on average, over the next 2 years, we're going to see a 2.1% increase, we would have said, get out of here. It's never going to happen. And it's happening. So thank you. The results are proof for themselves. When we met 6 months ago, a year ago, I articulated 2 goals. One was to have 3 or more offers, ultimately to have leverage, and 2 is to get us down a path of being self-insured, with the assumption that insurance companies make 12 to 15% on average in profit, and if we can cut out that profit, we can give that back to our employees, or we can give it back to our taxpayers in the form of lower savings. So again, thank you. Like this is big, this is huge, this is momentous. I don't think we've seen a decrease in 10 years. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Couple questions specific. One, does this include dependent verification? I had a conversation just last night at softball. The gal that was there, she works for Target in HR. We're talking about insurance. She was putting the screws to me about what can we expect from you, commissioners, et cetera. And she said at Target, they had dependent verification. And what she articulated to me is they have policy that says if you have a 25-year dependent, they are covered under mom and dad's insurance, but when they get to be 26, 27, 28, they're not. And what they found out through audit was that they had a lot of 26, 27, 28-year-olds. They had a lot of people that didn't qualify based on their policy. Once they implemented a dependent verification piece, they saved millions of dollars, and it's a large enterprise. And so I said I would ask the question on our behalf and on the taxpayer's behalf, is dependent verification part of the process?
Yes, Health Partners currently does that and will continue to offer that. They will notify employees who have dependents aging off, and then they have to come off of the plan at the end of the month in which they turn 26.
Just to piggyback on that, who does that verification? You mentioned Health Partners, so it's not extra work for our county staff.
I can't speak to exactly what the county staff might do in terms of additional
Just
work.
looking out for you, man.
I know. Health Partners does do the work of notifying. I don't know if the county does.
So Health Partners, and that's since they do both our medical and dental, they notify us, they notify the employee. They're also some COBRA and continuation offerings, so there is some process involved by employee relations. We also, with our benefit enrollment system, have a process in place where every couple of months that broker is running a report, letting us know, hey, these people are coming up, so we're always in front of it with the employees as well. So
Yep.
I can confidently say we don't have anyone over the age of 26 on our plan, or
Okay.
age 26.
Thank you.
Commissioner Uderman.
We've had conversations because I tag onto the insurance committee as well. And Carrie, I think you sent it on, a good explanation, but I want to be transparent on it. Some insurance companies will reinvest in health initiatives. We have a health initiative that if you do X, Y, and Z, you get $100. Whoever pays for that is one pocket or the other. The company that you're proposing that we go with does not do that because they view that as illegal in a rebate type system. So I just wanted to be transparent. We can take some of the savings that we're going to experience and reinvest in our staff, because ultimately the logic would go, if we invest in the health of our staff, we'll be a healthier insurable risk. We'll be able to drive premiums down in year 3 when we go back out to bid. Is there a functional way for us to carve out, say, $200,000 of the estimated million savings year over year to reinvest in our team? And is Gallagher well positioned to tell us what the best place to invest those $200,000 would be?
Yes, good question. So you are correct that Health Partners does not offer a wellness incentive. So it would be up to the county to determine how much money they would like to take out of that savings to use for wellness initiatives. Functionally, I can't speak to exactly how that would be done within your internal finance department. But in terms of your second question about is Gallagher well positioned? Yes, and the county does have a wellness consultant through Gallagher that I work with. Her name is Lisa. She can help talk about programs, initiatives, investments, and talk really how we decide that is what is the goal. Is it population health management? Is it employee engagement? Is it morale? I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why employers provide wellness initiatives. We can help the county.
Mr. Chair, could I interrupt?
Mr.
Sorry,
Hemsey,
Commissioner
Minister.
Urban. I would also add in the 25 recommended budget, I'm sorry, too far, requested budget, there's 490,000 for that kind of a program. Now it would have to survive the budgetary process. And
Yep.
as you know, we have a significant gap. With, the thought in mind is $100 just isn't enough.
Yep.
We don't have that many participants to crank that number up, would attract more, but will that make us healthier? That's a good debate. Sometimes it does, maybe, sometimes it doesn't. So stay tuned on the budget side.
Yeah, I'm an advocate for the 100, but with participation. And then I'm also an advocate that if we collectively reach the participation goal, that you top it off with another 150, so people could have 250 cash at the end of the year. That's ideas that I've circulated. I don't know if Gallagher can validate in other places if it works, because ultimately we want the result from it. But imagine a goal of 75% of our folks participate in our primary health goal. And if we achieve that collectively, not just individually, but collectively, what that could do for morale and urging people to do it in the spirit of health, there's dozens of ideas. We'll leave that to you. So I guess for me, leaving this is congratulations, wonderful. If I do the math, just to put it on record, we were on trajectory to be around $14 million a year in premium in 25. 7.7% reduction off that gets us to north of $1 million in savings. If you average the 7.7% decrease that's expected next year and the 12% increase max the following year, you add those two numbers together, Divide by 2, that gets you to about a 2% year-over-year increase each of the next 2 years. That's huge. And I wanted to also say, this will undoubtedly reduce our turnover. It'll undoubtedly make us more attractive to attract and retain employees. It will undoubtedly give an indication back to our staff that we hear them, because unequivocally, this was the number one thing that staff has reached out to me and said we want to address, and we're addressing it. And it shows an investment in what the staff wants. And so wins all the way around. Congratulations. I'd love to push the envelope a little bit further, but we'll take some serious wins this year. So thank you. Those are my comments.
Other questions on the medical results summary? If not, Jessica, take it away. I think we're going to go dental.
We're gonna go with dental. So the dental summary results are listed here. On the top portion, you will see the fully insured results. In the bottom table, you will see the self-insured results. Focus your attention on the orange box. The good news is the county is interested in moving self-insured, and that is the recommendation to do for dental this year. So the dental is much different, a much different risk than the medical insurance. So taking the risk on the medical insurance didn't make sense this year, however, it does on the dental. So this will allow us, there's just not a big cost difference between the two. It allows us to get moving forward to be self-funded, to own and control those costs, not be a part of the insurance carrier's profit margin, as Commissioner Uterman noted, and allow the county to start to feel and understand what it means to go self-funded, the cash flow mechanisms, the finance mechanisms, in preparation for next time we bid on medical. Hopefully the results will be that we can move self-funded. So the dental results to be self-funded, remaining with health partners, allows us to see just a small increase and get a second year rate cap. Again, the costs are much smaller when we reviewed this with the Labor Management Committee, and the differences in plan designs and benefits that would occur if you were to switch a carrier is just simply not worth it for the administrative costs and the disruption that a member sees. So the recommendation to move self-funded with health partners on dental.
Pretty straightforward with dental. Any questions on this portion? Seeing none. Mia, what's the next steps?
I just want to note one more thing on dental before I get to the next steps, is that the move to a self-funded dental program is going to require a one-time funding,
Why would-
reserve funding investment of up to
Why would it
$150,000.
cost us money to be self-insured?
We need to have our reserves built up, so as premiums hit or claims hit at the beginning of the year, we have money to pay those premium or claims with. And then we'll build additional reserves through the premiums we collect throughout the year. And I say that. So next steps. So the cost shown, the 2025 annual renewal cost is approximately $11.6 million for medical insurance and $660,000 for dental insurance. Note that the estimated costs are based on our current, so 2024 plan enrollment or 2024 premiums and plan enrollment distribution. So based on today's enrollment or this year's enrollment are how we got those costs. The health insurance cost will be reduced pending successful negotiation of the recommended industry standard HSA plan structure. And that would be updating the county's existing HSA plan deductibles to reflect single and family deductible amounts of $3,300 and $6,600, which is subject to negotiations with the county's bargaining units and all bargaining units agreeing to modify the HSA plan structure. The annual renewal amounts listed are the full annual cost of premiums. Employees in the county share the cost of health insurance and dental insurance, and cafeteria contributions are negotiated with each bargaining unit. And as I noted, reserve funding is needed to transition to self-funded dental. This ensures we have initial cash flow available to pay additional claims, or to pay claims as additional funds are built. And the auto liability self-insurance fund has been identified as an available funding source and has ample funds for the one-time dental request of $150,000. This time then, the action requested at this time is a motion to approve multi-year agreements with health partners covering 2025 and 2026 for provision of fully insured group health insurance and covering 2025 through 2027 for provision of self-funded group dental insurance, and a motion to approve restricting $150,000 of the auto liability self-insurance fund balance to establish an initial cash flow reserve for dental claims.
Move to approve, Chair.
We have a motion
Second.
by Commissioner Uderman, second by Commissioner Workman. Any discussion? First question on discussion for me would be, what happens if we come to a stumbling block with one of the bargaining units? What happens if one bargaining unit, we have trouble getting this negotiated with? Does that throw
So
everybody?
we have quotes from both health partners for our current plan, the 3,300 single, 5,400 family deductible, and that's the 5% decrease in the 11.6 million. So we have that as a default plan. That is our current plan in place. So we would have that plan still. But the goal is to negotiate the 3,300, 6,600 HSA plan, which is the larger decrease. That's industry standard to have the family plan to be, or family deductible be 2 times the single deductible is industry standard. So we have incrementally moved that way. We moved in 2024, increased that family. So the goal would be to continue moving that way.
So this isn't gonna catch any bargaining unit by surprise.
It should not catch any bargaining units by
Right.
surprise.
Okay.
As a member of the Labor Cap Management Committee with myself, Commissioner Uderman, and Chair Degler, we have been talking about this with the Labor Management Committee. We had positive feedback from the committee regarding they're wanting lower premiums. They want lower premiums on a monthly basis is more important is what we heard than a deductible.
Mr. Chair, if I could
Commissioner
add,
Hampson.
the Labor Management Committee is going to meet again, 1 o'clock this
Yep.
afternoon, to keep them up to speed. I'd like to thank that group. It has been tremendously helpful in getting the word out. This is complicated, right? And often misunderstood. So that group, and not only this round, but multiple rounds, has been really the key to moving us in a positive direction. And then I'd also mention in August, we are going to come into a closed session. We'll talk more in a confidential session about the labor strategy and making sure that we do whatever we can to implement these recommendations with all of our bargaining groups, because of course, October is going to come quick, right, Mia? She knows better than anybody. That's open enrollment, so, we'd love to have contracts, complete contracts in place by then. If not, we would have to do a memorandum of understanding or agreement on this particular piece. We'll be back in the closed session with more info.
Any final questions or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, and we're combining the two motions into one. Is that okay, Mr. County Attorney?
That's fine, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank
Good
you,
job,
Mr. Chair and
thank you very
Commissioners.
much.
Open enrollment will start October 21. Put it on your calendars.
And this health insurance is so easy, that's why my future life, I think I'm gonna work for Gallagher.
We're hiring.
Yeah. Okay. Item number 7 is a Community Development Agency Board appointment, CDA appointment. As you know, we have a number of advisory committees that we appoint to, and through time, it becomes vacancies. And we've had a vacancy in my district on the CDA for, well, since the last one resigned. So now we do have a qualified candidate, and Mr. Greg Coomer lives actually in District 5. But I am going to nominate Mr. Greg Coomer. Everybody has seen his application, his resume, and I will move to appointment to the CDA of Mr. Greg Coomer. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
I made the motion and Commissioner Fahey seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Uderman.
Mr. Chair, 2 things. One, I'd like our staff to review the process of candidate approval. I think that this one, and I think we talked about Riley Creek before, there's been some, I think, avoidable unfairness in the process that could be clarified, including acknowledging a candidate when they submit their resume, including letting them know if somebody else is appointed, including letting them know if their application is active or not active. I think that because we didn't have that baked in intentionally or otherwise, we lost a really good candidate that didn't feel like there was dignity in the process. And so I think that, number one, we should review that process to make sure that, one, we're not legally exposed, but two, that we treat all candidates with dignity. The second thing I want to say is I've long said this in a lot of forums, that I think a balanced board is a better board. When I got elected, I think I was the only one that wasn't born in Minnesota. I think I was the only one that school-aged kids, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that if you look at the CDA, sometimes the board looks the same. There's not a whole lot of diversity, if you will, on that board. If this appointment goes through, we'll have 4 50-plus-year-old white guys on the CDA board. And we had an opportunity to change that. And if this board appointment goes through, I think we're giving an indication that we're validating in a lot of ways the Good Old Boys Network is alive and well. And I don't think we should do that. I don't think that we achieve a balanced board with this appointment. I don't think that that the proposed appointment accomplishes a tapestry of the things that represent our community. I don't think the vetting process was fair or transparent to all. And further, I think with that appointment, we open ourselves up to avoidable risk in declining to appoint a candidate that may have been unfairly excluded from consideration the last 3 months. As recent as last week, I was told that we weren't going to make an appointment today. And then a candidate emerged, and then quickly we decided we weren't going to appoint. And at that point, we had an active candidate that was fully credentialed, that was passed over, and I was unable to give comments in support of him at that appointment. And so this is not for or against the candidate that's brought forth. It's for the future of Carver County. It's for a balanced board with the CDA, and it's to take a 5-year appointment very seriously. And so I won't be supporting it, and I would appeal to my peers to push pause until our next meeting for a chance to consider some of the thoughts that I offered.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair,
Administrator Hempstead.
if I could follow up and extend, number one, my apologies, not only to the board, I already talked to the previous CDA candidate, Jeremy, and apologize to him. I dropped the ball on that one. That was during Diane's departure, no excuse, but that I thought she had notified him. She didn't. But all those things that you mentioned are built into the regular process, the notification, the follow-up, et cetera. Now, if you want to go further than that, some entities do. They have more formalized interviews, for example, with potentially the full board. That's a whole different path that I could follow up with my peers to see how they do that. I think the challenge there is staffing and the effort, et cetera. I know that in just about all cases, you reach out, and I know Gail or others, you reach out to these candidates, talk to them, in many cases sit down, and in effect interview them. But some entities have more, again, formalized processes. If you want to do that, let me know, and I can follow up and figure out a way to do that. I think the biggest challenge, however, is just like with our employee issue, attracting candidates, good candidates. That's the real challenge. I don't have many great magical solutions on that. I think it's very difficult to attract candidates into these positions, in particular with some of the appointments that are really time-consuming, like the CDA and the Planning Commission. So I just offer those comments, and again, we'll make sure with Krista on track now. It is always a challenging process because there's so many advisory committees, and they're all a little bit different. But we'll do better in the future to make sure that we're respectful of candidates, because I felt terrible that when I recognized and realized, I think it was almost 3 months that we hadn't gotten back to the candidate. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, it was regrettable that the ball was dropped. That's what it amounts to. The ball was dropped, and that's normally not the process that is taking place at Carver County, but let's call it a mistake. A mistake happens. But we're moving on now. We have a qualified candidate here that's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Commissioner Fahey.
Mr. Chair, when you look at, and Dave alluded to this, just the process and the challenge for all of us as board members are supposed to find individuals within our districts and just the lack of good applicants and the time that is served. And you look at Mr. Cummer's resume and extremely qualified for a position, and he served on the CDA board in the past. And the reason he had to step away is he took a job change in a different state. And so he was gone for a period of time, and now he's back full-time and living in Norwood, Young American, extremely qualified and just an excellent individual. So we have a qualified candidate. And as we go through this process and you look at the diversity of these different boards, and I think as commissioners, when we have to go and find all these candidates for our individual districts, that all just comes down to, well, that's what the boards are made of. And so I think the process works, and we just have to continue to advertise when we're looking for new candidates, to get the word out there, to have these applications in, because you just go back and you look at on any given appointment, there's only been maybe one, maybe two applicants at best for all the different boards and the advisory committees that we have. So I'm extremely happy that Mr. Cummer has applied, and just really confident in his abilities to help at the CDA level.
Other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I just wanted to embrace the moment. You made it clear that there's preference for people that are within district. We've established a pattern, I guess, of appointing people outside of district and appointing people outside of our own appointment. I think the question has to ask is why Mr. Ely was passed over. Being the president of the third largest homeowners association in the United States, a person that's
I think right now that's not germane to the motion. The motion is the appointment of Mr. Greg Cummers. And so to talk about a candidate that is not on the motion right now, I don't think is germane to what
I just
we're talking
note that
about.
this is the second time you haven't given me the ability to speak on behalf of a candidate. So thank you.
Well, I think when you were speaking on the first time, you were going to read his whole resume. As Mr. Cummers' resume is out there, we've read it ourselves. It's not, hasn't been and isn't our practice to read everybody's resume in the boardroom at this point, so. Any other discussion? Commissioner Lynch.
If we could, I think we've had these conversations before. I think our advisory committee, as Mr. Fahey has pointed out, it is difficult finding these, to find someone with a willingness to serve, and oftentimes a thankless job. I'm very happy to actually put, to support Mr. Coomer today. I think he's very well qualified. And not only that, but he's had experience on the CDA board, as it was pointed out. I think he's going to do a wonderful job. So I'm very happy to support Mr. Coomer today.
Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to appoint Mr. Cummers to the CDA, say aye. Aye. Oppose?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. With that, brings us to 8.1, the approval of the agreement, settlement agreement. Approval of the settlement agreement. Mr. Metz, or we're gonna, Jennifer, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Tishy, Assistant Carver County Attorney, and yes, I'm here to present a little background on behalf of the County Attorney's Office and Finance and Taxpayer Services, who are also here today and could help answer any questions if you have them. I'm going to give just a little background. I'm sure you're all aware of this litigation, and to the extent portions of it went through the legislature, you're probably aware. It is called, the one we're talking about, the agreement, is Sharon's 4-letter versus the state of Minnesota. So how did we get here? In 2015, Hennepin County, through their process, forfeited a condo that was owned by a 94-year-old plaintiff, Geraldine Tyler. She had the condo and had accumulated over $15,000 in unpaid real estate taxes. Going through the statutory process, Hennepin County seized that condo and it was tax forfeited, as I said, in 2015. Part of the tax forfeiture process, as you know, is that title to the property gets transferred to the state of Minnesota upon the forfeiture, and then the counties are obligated to administer the property tax laws, including managing tax forfeited properties on behalf of the state. So they managed the tax, Hennepin County managed the condo and then ultimately sold it for $40,000. So obviously that exceeded the tax debt by about $25,000, creating this surplus. As provided for since 1935 in statute, the sale proceeds were put into their tax sale fund, and those proceeds were then apportioned by law to the school district, the county, and the city of Hennepin County. In 2019, Tyler filed a class action stating that she was entitled to the surplus of that from that sale, anything, as I said, beyond the tax debt. The federal district court in Hennepin County ruled in favor of Hennepin County, basically saying once you lost the property to the state of Minnesota and it was forfeited, you didn't retain any property interest in that property. The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed that ruling on behalf of Hennepin County. But in May of 2023, the United States Supreme Court reversed that, stating that the Minnesota's statutory framework for tax forfeiture was unconstitutional, and that, in fact, the property owner was entitled to the surplus. So, as I said, that was May 2023. It didn't take long for some other lawsuits to crop up. June 23rd, 2023 is when this 4-letter action was filed against the state of Minnesota and Minnesota's 20 most populous counties, which includes, of course, Carver County, and also named Mary Kay Wall as treasurer and Crystal Campos as the auditor in their official capacities. A 3rd action was filed, DeMars versus St. Louis County, on July 18th, similar related claims. So ultimately, upon agreement of all the parties, all 3 of those cases were consolidated. They were venued in Ramsey County, and the chief judge, Castro, was assigned. So lead defense counsel on behalf of our named defendants included someone from the Attorney General's office on behalf of the state, someone from Hennepin County, and an attorney from St. Louis County. So for over the course of 8 months, they worked with plaintiffs' counsel to reach a settlement in all 3 of the class actions. The goal from the perspective of all parties, but in part the defense lead counsel, was to ensure that the compensation that ultimately might go to these claimants out there would be uniform to all class members across the state, and importantly that the funding would come from the state legislature. That was, of course, important in that we were, as counties, administering this according to state statute and on behalf of the state of Minnesota, and it would be very burdensome for many or most counties to have borne that potential financial exposure with the claimants coming and suing all the counties directly, individually. So as part of kind of reaching the settlement, 85 counties collected and analyzed the data based on an agreed upon look back period going back to June 23rd, 2016. Again, theoretically, this settlement period could have gone back forever, for as long as there was data, I guess. But they did create that look back period. Hennepin and St. Louis counties was, as it says there, just a little bit longer because they had those individual lawsuits already initiated in their counties. But so our taxpayer services team worked really diligently to put together a pretty complex spreadsheet of the data, and all of, as it says, all 85 counties that submitted that helped kind of develop the ultimate number they got to for the settlement. So just a brief overview or a high-level overview of where Carver County's data stands. As I said, the spreadsheet includes a lot more information, but essentially there were 27 forfeited parcels during the settlement period. Of those, 21 have been sold either to a government agency, repurchased by the taxpayer, or sold at public sale or private sale. So we currently have 6 remaining in our inventory. So as I said, there was 8 months of negotiation. Ultimately, as required in the litigation process, mandatory mediation was held on a couple of 3 different days, actually, in November and February 2024, and it did result in a negotiated settlement saying that They believe statewide there are 6,000 parcels that fall into this settlement class. And the settlement was contingent upon obtaining that $109 million legislative appropriation. The Association of Minnesota Counties and the Attorney General's Office kind of spearheaded that process at the legislature to secure that appropriation. The legislature, both chambers of the House unanimously approved, or of the legislature unanimously approved the $109 million appropriation from the state's general fund. All counties, according to the legislation, are automatically in unless they choose to opt out by August 1st. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, if you are not going to participate, if the board chose not to remain in, then you retain the liability that maybe potentially even more than the 6 that we have outstanding could come forward and file individual lawsuits that we would need to defend against and would not have that same uniform compensation structure. One of the requirements of the new legislation was that counties provide data to effectuate the settlement. As I said, we did that early on to help establish that $109 million number. Again, on May 21st, all counties resubmitted their data to plaintiff's lead counsel to get this next step going. So litigation and settlement by our defense lead counsel hailed this as a gigantic victory. They many times said in our meetings that, a year ago at this time, they did not think that we would be sitting here with kind of an acceptable settlement with plaintiffs that has virtually no financial exposure essentially to the county. So the parties drafted a proposed settlement agreement based on that negotiation. And on June 27th, the county attorney, on behalf of Carver County and the named defendants, signed the proposed settlement in order to meet court deadlines. As you can see there, the very next day, on June 28th, there was a court hearing where Judge Castro approved that preliminary approval. The timeline for all of these pieces falling into place and getting to you before that signature just couldn't happen. So today, part of our resolution and request is that you ratify the decision of the county attorney to approve that settlement agreement. So the next steps, once that settlement agreement is in place, that sort of triggered kind of how we carry this out over the next time period. The first thing is that the actual administration of this will be done by a third party, Kroll. Kroll has history. This is a similar litigation. I think it was in Michigan and maybe other states where Kroll has acted as the claims administrator. So they are going to take all the steps to identify, provide notice, process potential claimants, and identify who actually who has an interest or a possible claim. If they are an approved claimant, the claimant would receive 90% of the surplus value that they held in the forfeited property. So our obligations under the new statute are that we sell what we have in inventory. I'm not going to go through all of this, but essentially the main takeaway, it needs anything that was forfeited in the settlement period needs to have an attempt at a sale. We can do that in person, online, through broker. There's statutory provisions still remain in effect where you could potentially sell it to an adjacent owner. The minimum price will be the appraised value of the property. And there's a different breakdown in terms of where the tax forfeited money is split between the state and the county, depending on if we sell it before 2027 of June 30th of 2027 or after. So I'll get into that a little bit with respect to the 6. So we have 6. We must attempt to sell in good faith. Divide, if we sell it prior to June 30th, 2027, 75% will go to the state and 25% to the county. If it's between 2027 and June 30, 2029, then it's an 85%, 15% split. There are some additional reporting requirements that the county auditor will be obligated to do. And the third part of what we're asking you to do today is to delegate and authorize the county auditor to comply with those new statutory reporting requirements. my understanding is, the state of Minnesota Office of Management and Budget is tracking that $109 million appropriation and ensuring that counties are doing what they're doing to kind of replenish that fund. We just want to note that there are other tax forfeited parcels currently in Carver County's inventory. These are the only ones that just fall within that settlement period. Also parallel to the appropriation, obviously, there was a problem with the Supreme Court seemed to think our statute was unconstitutional, so there needed to be a parallel process where a new law was created to develop a constitutional process. Now, of course, counties will attempt to sell the property right away, provide interested parties the opportunity to claim those surplus funds. I'm not going to go into this. I can't read it myself,
Thank you.
actually. But just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot overview of kind of like what the old system looked like versus the additional steps that have been built in the new system to ensure compliance with the Constitution and that surplus.
How come it does look like government? I mean, the old system was boom. The new system is.
Right, yep. So, as I said, what we're here today is basically there's a resolution in your packet and requesting that you approve adoption of the settlement agreement, delegate to the county auditor those obligations to comply with the new state law, and ratify the county attorney's signature on that proposed settlement agreement. And if you have any questions?
Yeah, Jennifer, you did a great job at explaining this. I sit on the board of directors for AMC, and we've done a lot of talking about this. And like you said, a year ago, didn't think this was actually going to take place. Everybody knows about Tyler with her condominium or townhouse, sport leader, and St. Louis County, Demars. What those two cases, what were they basically about?
I wish I could tell you that right now.
Okay.
I don't know, Mr. Chair. I don't recall this facts in
The
either
St.
one of
Louis
those
County
well
one, I
enough.
think that has to do with lumber and that kind of land, forfeited land, but.
I think you're correct on that, Mr. Chair. There are, the settlement agreement is 51 pages long. I've tabbed it and tried to understand every portion of it, but there is a specific portion that deals with timberland forfeiture, so I think you're right that one of those, and I couldn't remember which, but
Right.
yes, I believe that
No, I
one
think,
is.
I mean, St. Louis County is one of the counties that, I don't want to say has benefited, but they've made use of the timber that was forfeited back to them. So they did get, at least they were paying for the cost that they incurred. Where some of these others, that's the problem with forfeited property. We incur a whole bunch of expenses, and there's no way for us to capture our cost unless we sell it. So, other questions for Jennifer? Commissioner Workman.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've been hanging around government a long time, and here we are in 2024, and I think the Tyler case was 2016 or 15 or whatever, and of course, nobody in this room is guilty of anything, but I think the Supreme Court exposed an arrogance of government that is incredible in this day and age, that she maybe just happened to be 94, old, behind in her taxes. What could go wrong? A lot could go wrong, but that the government wasn't there to recognize that she still had some equity in this thing, and this had been going on for years and years and years. I just, if I was a legislator, I would have voted for this bill. I don't agree with most of what they've been passing down there. But what an injustice, and yeah, I guess it behooves all of us in the room who are in government to look out for this even small, I guess, arrogance, taking advantage of a person's misfortune to profit the government state. And so,
Well said. The fact that she did have equity makes a big difference. A lot of the forfeiture properties that the county ends up with, they're in debt. I mean, that's the reason the landowner, the person that owns it, basically says, hey, I'm not going to pay these taxes because I can't pay the assessments do or I can't pay, whatever anyway. So let's just give it to the county and let them fight with it or do whatever.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, when I was a legislator 312 years ago, something like that, and I represented a significant portion of Lake Minnetonka, and the old man dies, and what's the one thing you can't control is property taxes, but the correspondence I had with so many widows who, well, I got to move off the lake now because because the pressure that the government has to get their pound of flesh, and so I suggested capping property taxes for the people in just my district. But and I
So
understand.
more people move to your district real quick.
Right, well, yeah, Lake Minnetonka, but the pain and the tears of people who have to move, when something goes wrong, it might be a death, it might be an illness, or something. And so, I've sat at quite a few teary-eyed kitchen tables when MnDOT wants your land, Lyndon Robgent wants your land. I think there's that pendulum again, but, brand new Highway 5 when it was a long time ago. Well, we need your farm for that frontage road and Highway 5 and names like Carver and others. And literally the MnDOT guy representing government looked at him in the face and said, well, too bad, you got to move. That's the law. Well, here we are. The law isn't always right. And so, anyway, thank you. I don't blame you. But it's fascinating.
Other questions, concerns? Commissioner Lynch.
If I could, you had the breakdown before, before if you sell it, I think it was a slide back with the breakdown of 75 and 15%. Not to make this more complicated, but what about the other taxing entities, school districts, cities?
I might have to defer to Crystal if she knows that answer. My understanding is I think as there was before, the portion that goes to the county will will be apportioned again between those three taxing districts, I believe, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Lynch.
Crystal?
I'm not sure if it's clear at this point.
Okay.
Last I heard, actually, the county will get to keep that
Okay,
25 or 50% for those 6 parcels that we have.
okay.
And if one
Commissioner
more, and well, let's say 2016, a portion property was forfeited, and let's say the person buys it back again. What about the out-year taxes?
So in a repurchase,
Crystal, please come to the microphone so we can make sure everybody hears you.
sorry. In a repurchase, the purchase price was always the tax amount plus cost, penalty, interest that was due.
Okay. Wonderful.
Commissioner Fahey.
What about the other side of the coin? For example, if there's the 15,000 unpaid real estate taxes and the property sold for $1 and it was torn down?
The county
Obvious-
incurs those costs.
Yeah, so obviously there's no way for us to go back to this state and say,
Correct. It's only the ones that have surplus.
So that kind of brings me to, my one question was, the minimum bid on, we have 6 parcels, the minimum bid is the assessed value. I think that's what it said. What if nobody meets that minimum bid? What happens to the property then?
So of the 6 parcels we have in inventory from that period, 1 has already been taken to sale and it has not sold. It will sit on our books until we sell it, if we sell it. Most of them are landlocked pieces that nobody wants.
Okay, so it sits on our books forever?
We
Well-
have some, I have one that goes back to 1985.
Well, the previous owner didn't want it either.
Correct. Right. So anybody could buy it if you pay the minimum valuation?
Well, we would, if it's landlocked or unbuildable, we always have sold it to an adjacent property.
Correct, that makes sense.
Yeah, and those are the ones that don't want it.
There's usually a reason they don't want it.
Yeah, I don't know the reasons.
No, it
Yeah.
probably changes never. Other thoughts?
I'm just curious, who maintains it if we own it and
Nope.
nobody wants it?
Who maintains?
maintain
So we can send out a,
Most of the parcels don't have a true maintenance cost. There's a few that over the years that we've had to do lawn mowing or remove snow, and we end up paying it out of our tax forfeit fund.
So that's where the county can be put in a hole. Mr. Frischman?
I just want to introduce Crystal.
I'm sorry.
Campos, she's our county auditor, and she's also our property tax department manager.
Some of us know her, and we just didn't. Thank you. Back to the comment was the fact that the county does have some liabilities to maintain this property and maintain it, make sure it's not a hazard to anybody else too, so.
A good example of that, if you remember, a couple years ago, we had that auto salvage lot that they ended up actually repurchasing, and they were able, we were able to not maintain the property and made them maintain it. But that would have been a big one for us, if we would have had to have paid for that.
So the action at hand is a motion to approve the resolution adopting the settlement agreement that was negotiated and delegating the county auditor the obligations to meet the state law and ratifying the county attorney's execution of the settlement agreement.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Fahey, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lynch. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I'd like to say you've done a good work, but the work is still in progress, so continue the good work.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lynch,
you could recess as, I'd make the motion to recess as the county board and convene as the Carver County Regional Rail Authority.
second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lynch, second by Commissioner Ruderman, to recess as the county board and reconvene as the regional rail. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now acting as the regional rail, and we welcome Mr. Marty Walsh, Parks
Good morning,
Director.
Mr. Chair. Marty Walsh, County Parks and Recreation Director. So here to talk a little bit again about the railroad project, if you will, the Circle of Brick Trail that's going on in Chaska. And so a lot of background information, which I shared with you here about a week ago. Of course, we did purchase the Union Pacific Railroad line, 5.6 miles, some years ago. Lots of other history here, if you will, and I think you're familiar with that, so I will not dive into detail there. So the Circle of Brick Trail project is outlined in red. It basically extends from Athletic Park in Chaska here all the way over to the East Creek Diversion Channel. And then there is a spur, as you can see on the map there, that heads towards the Crystal Sugar. So that is the project. And you're, I think, already aware, of course, that the underpass at 41 is constructed, not quite yet open, but this is the next phase of the work so that the actual underpass then attaches to something that people can use. So on June 18th, again, getting back, the board approved the joint powers agreement with Carver County Regional Rail Authority and the City of Chaska for the construction, operation, and maintenance of the Circle of Brick Trail. There are two parcels that are involved, and the property numbers are identified there, that are owned by the Regional Rail Authority. Here are those two parcels kind of graphically represented here. The image off on the left-hand side is closer to Carver, and a portion of trail exists on that parcel. But when you get to near Athletic Park at First Street there, and going towards town, there is not a trail, and that is the railroad corridor, but there is not a trail on that today. And then the image over on the right-hand side is the remaining railroad parcels, and that continues all the way over to just about Zemble Street. So again, more background here. The City of Chaska will extend the trail on a county-owned parcel. And this is right-of-way parcel. So this other parcel here is owned by the county as part of the road right-of-way. County will issue a separate administrative permit for that trail. So that's something that the road authority does with other trail projects that are in county right away. And here's an image of that parcel. So you can see it's a long, narrow strip and a bit flag-shaped as you reach Zimble Street. So CCRA seeks board authorization for CCRA to enter into a permanent transportation easement agreement with the county. So the Regional Rail Authority is going to enter into an agreement with the county for a permanent transportation easement. The agreement allows CCRA to grant this permanent transportation easement on CCRA property. Permanent transportation easement here, the county's acquisition of the permanent easement for trail projects allows the county to apply for Metropolitan Council funds for the county's acquisitions costs. So we will apply for the county to obtain dollars from the Metropolitan Council so that we can purchase the easement from the Carver County Regional Rail Authority.
When you say we are going to apply, who's we?
Me. Me in terms of the actual staff person, but you as the board approve the grant agreement.
The board, the Regional Rail Board is what I'm saying.
Yeah, yes, so two things have to take place here. So you are acting today here as the Regional Rail Authority.
Correct.
Earlier on the agenda, on the consent agenda, the board acted to approve the agreement as the
I
county.
just wanted you to clarify what we or who me or whatever is acting, what hat you're wearing at the
Right.
time.
So again, the board approves, both the county board and the Regional Rail Authority will approve the transaction.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Workman.
so the county is gonna own this.
The county will own a permanent transportation easement across Regional Rail Authority property, correct? The Regional Rail Authority will retain its ownership of the actual property itself. The county is obtaining a certain bundle of rights to allow for the construction and ongoing operation of the trail.
So I think the reason Mr. Workman is bringing this up is the county owns this trail as a corridor for future transportation. And if by chance that would ever be utilized for future transportation, that agreement would supersede anything that we've given to the regional rail for trails.
That's correct, Mr. Chair, and we'll get to that here in just a moment.
Okay.
So the permanent transportation easement allows the county to operate and maintain the trail. We are also allowing Chaska to construct, operate, maintain the trail until such point in time as we are able to take it over. And so they'll perform other activities that are reasonably related to and necessary to the construction and operation and maintenance of the trail improvements. So initially here, we will be granting rights. County will be granting rights to Chaska, again, through the joint powers agreement, which we've already executed, to construct and operate the trail. When the project is complete, then we kick in. This is a part of the regional trail system network, Minnesota River Bluffs Regional Trail, and then we become the operator of the trail. And there'll be certain responsibilities that Chaska will continue to do with regards to maintaining streetscape and things of that nature. We will be the operator of the trail. The permanent transportation easement agreement here is subject to existing conditions of CCRA. So getting back to the question here about what does the Regional Rail Authority continue to have for rights. And so, again, the corridor is preserved for future transportation purposes. There are other agreements with regards to the railroad corridor, largely utility and lease agreements that cross the corridor. And the Regional Rail Authority will continue to be the governing body for those lease agreements and licenses. And again, there is an interim trail use condition that's placed on the corridor. So right now, there is authority for us to continue to operate it as a regional trail. So future actions here, and this is, again, a multi-step process, if you will, going through this. To maximize funding from the Metropolitan Council, we will convey, the Regional Rail Authority will convey interest to Carver County in 2 separate transactions. And so we are eligible up to about $1.7 million per transaction. The value of the easement area exceeds that. It's just south of about $3 million. And so it'll take us 2 funding cycles, if you will, 2 different years for us to get the funding completely back to the county. So again, lots of steps here, and thanks to Mary for helping us also kind of go through all the different steps, and she's been working hard with all the agreements and so forth here. Lots of work here. So like Carver County Regional Rail Authority will enter into a settlement agreement to document the county's acquisition cost of the permanent easement from CCRRA, conditioned on the county's receipt of Met Council funding. The county will apply for grant funding from Met Council for county's acquisition cost of the permanent transportation easement. If the county receives grant funding, and it's likely, not, let's say if, but we say if the county receives grant funding from Met Council, then county will enter into agreements with Met Council for the acquisition costs. CCRRA and county will enter into joint powers agreements with one another to transfer CCRRA's obligations to the county. And again, this will occur over 2 transactions. So we'll have one grant agreement for a certain portion of the railroad corridor and another grant agreement for the remainder. And the county will issue then an administrative permit to the city of Chaska for that parcel of property that is owned by Carver County and not the Regional Rail Authority for the trail.
Until the county or the regional rail receives the money, who's upfronting this?
Right now, Chaska is upfronting the dollars towards the project, but we have a commitment here through the joint powers agreement to pay them back. So they are the lead agency for the project, but we are working to make sure that we have our funding lined up.
And if we don't get the funding from the Med Council, are we gonna pay them back?
Yes, we will.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, are you talking about the permit, the easement acquisition cost?
The 2 grants that we're gonna get, are they for permanent or are they for the trail?
They are for the permanent transportation easement. The CCRRA can then choose to finance the construction of the project with those funds.
So the question is, if we don't get this grant from the Med Council, who's on the hook for that money?
Well, Mr. Chair, members, we have a joint powers agreement. We will find the dollars, so to speak, if you will, for the project. So we have other sources of funds, but the funding source that we are working to get lined up here is the grant dollars with Met Council.
Okay.
So again, the recommendation here then, CCRRA requests the board authorize CCRRA to enter the permanent transportation easement agreement with Carver County upon completion of and subject to the contract review process. And then the items here, grants of permanent transportation easement across the parcels that we've already identified there. Those numbers are there. Grant certain real property rights, again, to sections of CCRRA property identified, again, by those parcel numbers for the purposes of operating and maintaining the trail. And then allow the county to grant access rights and right to be upon sections of CCRA property, again, by the parcels identified to the city of Chaska to construct and operate and maintain the trail for public recreation. So, Mr. Chair, members stand for questions there, and Mary Shimshak is also here to assist.
I was just gonna say, give Mary credit as to, she did a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yes,
Here,
absolutely.
From our attorney's office.
Yeah.
Questions? Commissioner Workman?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't think even Ms. Shimshak can answer this heavy-weighted question that I have. So Mrs. Workman and I are coming down the Minnesota River Bluff Trail. The breeze is blowing through our hair, and we're on our way through this more eastern part of this trail, heading under a tunnel so we can lunch at Size. We're done doing that, and we want to head to Carver. Now what? Where is the trail?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Workman, so the trail completes the gap between the East Creek Diversion Channel all the way over to Athletic Park where there is a,
So that is gonna follow that rail corridor, old rail corridor.
You can point with the,
so here is the location for where the trail project starts. The trail exists, the 2-mile section of trail exists into the city of Carver along the old railroad corridor. But what's identified in the gap is the gap in red. The gap is here. Now, there is a trail that's currently, I think, underwater that goes along the Carver levee. And one of the reasons for this realignment is because of that interruption during high water. There's an issue over by the Crystal Sugar, and then an issue by the 41 Bridge, where the trail is not usable under high water conditions. So this is the gap, and the gap would be completed with the project.
Right, and I think that gap to the east of 41 is obvious to people. It is not currently obvious when you come out of size. I'm using very technical language. And I'm gonna hook a right, and I'm gonna go to Carver or the Cubs game. That gap, so that is gonna be, because it looks like you're heading down a street, and is it going right by the license center and gonna be clearly marked trail?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Workman, yes. No, at the actual road intersections where the trail road crosses, there's going to be pedestrian crossings at those locations. But yes, it's essentially, with the exception of having to make that maneuver in terms of a road intersection, a straight line from the box culvert right to Athletic Park.
Yeah, it used to be obviously the old rail corridor. Everybody sees a row of trees. It used to be a row of trees there, and from size to the west, it's just nothing right now.
Right.
And that will be the trail. Other questions for Marty? If not, Commissioner Lynch.
maybe we should have clarification from Commissioner Workman. How long has he been in size?
I was
He
going
can't
to
see
say,
clearly.
the sheriff have to be informed on this?
The longer I'm in there, the longer I'm there.
Okay.
Maybe for Marty or for Mary, is there any way that we can make this more complicated?
I don't think so. I think we've exhausted all the possibilities.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, to all the bicyclists out there and pedestrians, the word transportation corridor, I bring this up all the time. Met Council, transportation corridor, money, what is a transportation corridor? And I suspect it's not my future hovercraft corridor, but it could be a high-speed bus lane. It could be a light rail. It could be all sorts of things in the future. And so people who are used to walking their dog on a trail, and I had this happen 25 years ago when they were thinking about making a high-speed bus corridor through Eden Prairie, when under Ted Mondale, our friend Ted Mondale, take the trail and turn it into high-speed bus corridors. It could happen.
Other comments? If not, we're looking for a motion to authorize the CCRRA to enter into a permanent transportation easement agreement with Carver County upon the completion of and subject to the contract review process, which has 3 bullet points to it. Somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Workman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fahey. Any discussion to that motion? Hearing none. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Marty. Good luck. Item 9.2 is the settlement agreement for Carver County Regional Rail Authority acquisition of a temporary easement for the Crane Creek Bridge repair.
Mr.
That
Chair,
one,
members,
Marty?
so pleased to report that we've been able to work with the property owner, but just to, for an easement, but just to kind of review things here, we have a bridge that's in decay. It's on the Dakota Rail Corridor. It's out towards the western limits of the county. The abutments are rotting. Wing moles are tilting away from the structure. So just a little bit about the location of the project. So the bridge, if you will, is kind of identified in this box area. Here's the McLeod, Carver County boundary, County Road 30. And then the easement area, and we'll show that here in a minute, the staging for the access on and materials is in this location here. The project is quite difficult to access, so we've got another bridge here that's not suitable for construction traffic, and another bridge over here that's not suitable for construction traffic. And so we really need access from a private property owner to access the trail, not only to just get up onto the trail, but also for whatever staging might be needed for that project. So again, explain the difficulties of the corridor. Narrow, has a lot of wetlands, and the bridges that we talked about, and the easement area needed from the property owner. So this is just a visual of that easement area shown here.
Did County Road 30 lose 3 numbers or 3 digits when it went into McLeod County? I mean, it turned into 23?
I can't, yeah, good question, Mr. Chair. I don't know why the road's not labeled the same. So the settlement agreement, Mr. Chair and members, is for $5,000, and the funds would come out of the Carver County Regional Rail Authority budget for that easement area. And again, pleased that we were able to reach a settlement agreement with the private property owner. So the recommendation here is the motion to execute the stipulation of settlement agreement and adopt a resolution approving the settlement with the impacted property owners related to the repair of the bridge over Crane Creek on the Dakota Rail Regional Trail upon completion of the contract review process.
Any questions for Marty?
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Lynch, second by Commissioner Fahey to adopt the resolution and enter the settlement stipulation agreement with the impacted property owners for a temporary easement required to repair this bridge on the Crane Creek. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner
Only
Lynch.
that, good work, Marty. This has been a long, difficult process to get done, and obviously the bridge needs to be repaired, replaced, so good job. We've been talking about this at the Park Commission for a long time.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody disagree? Motion carries. Commissioner Workman.
Well, while we're still the railroad board, Marty, is there an update? I was on the Minnetonka Regional Trail from Excelsior to Victoria. Unbelievable amount of people on that trail. We are transferring that to us. There is some sitting water, and not surprisingly, in many places. Is part of the transfer a resurfacing of any type, or?
So, Mr. Chair and members, with regards to the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail, there's 3 miles of that corridor in Carver County extending from Victoria up to the North County line. And so we've done a number of things to line us up for this, I'll say, transfer of property. The Regional Rail Authority will, the Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority will transfer it to Carver County for essentially for $1. We've done some additional analysis with regards to, I'll say, culvert structures, if you will, and have applied for and will receive some stewardship funding for that corridor. The stewardship funding will apply towards the existing infrastructure of culverts for that. The dollar value there is roughly $380,000. But it will not repave the trail. But it will allow us to address what I'll say some significant infrastructure issues that are in the corridor.
Anything else, Mr. Commissioner Workman?
Move to adjourn as the railroad board?
Okay.
Or did we already do that?
Nope. We have a motion by Commissioner Workman, and I'll second by Commissioner Uderman to adjourn as the regional rail and reconvene as the county board. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now acting as the county board. We'll turn it over to Mr. Hemsey. Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would draw your attention to the upcoming meetings calendar right after your agenda. Lots of signs of progress in there, groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, grand openings, good stuff. You should have received calendar invites for all of those. If not, let me know. And then in addition, there's a Township Association meeting tonight, 7 o'clock at Vandy's Grill. We will be talking about cannabis with them, doing a presentation outlining likely potential partnerships with that group. And related to that, next week, the 16th, tentatively anyway, we have cannabis on the agenda again for a recommended moratorium. I've asked Nick and crew to keep an eye on the early growers application process, that lottery process. Potentially, if we have no successful applicants, we might reverse that recommendation. Maybe not. You know, this thing seems to be difficult to track and trace with how quickly it's moving. But anyway, I know there's a couple board members gone, so I wanted to let you know too that that issue's pending with a little bit of uncertainty as things move quickly. And we'll circle back to you on that issue.
Any questions for Mr. Hemsey? If not, we're going to adjourn, but I want to remind everybody, we're going into 2 work session items. One has to do with liability insurance and the other CDA housing. With that, is there a motion to adjourn our regular session?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Workman, second by Commissioner Fahey. There's no discussion on that motion. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.